Hey guys, LMNTRIX here. Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at a few different tips that should help you guys climb the ranks. I am definitely nowhere near Valorant rank and still have a lot to learn. But what I have been doing is recording as much gameplay as possible since day 2 of the beta. I like to review a lot of that gameplay to find out what works really well and what doesn't. And based on that, I've been able to come up with these tips that are not going to be too repetitive and should be able to give you something to think about during your next match. Keep in mind that there are plenty of tips that I have left out and that could have definitely been added into this video, but in order to keep it somewhat short, I decided to pick out my favorite ones. However, I would love to hear your thoughts if there's something perhaps that I have missed out that you think is crucial in Valorant. Please do leave it in the comments down below. I do read all of them and I can maybe add that into a future video. And as usual, I have all the timestamps linked in the description down below in case you want to jump to any part of this video. And the final thing I want to say is that I recently partnered up with NauDrinks. So if you are someone that enjoys drinking energy drinks while gaming, but don't like experiencing the jitters and the crashes, then I would definitely check out NauDrinks. They have an awesome, healthy product and I can highly recommend it. You can find more information on that in the description down below. But anyways guys, if you've enjoyed this video, then you already know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and you really enjoy this kind of content, then why not consider subscribing? So take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Alright, so starting off with the very first tip, and that is be less predictable. And I guarantee you that that is easier said than done. Because when you're in the middle of a round, your mind is not focusing on being less predictable, it is just focusing on killing the enemies and winning the round. Not only that, but it also very much depends on the situation that you're in. Maybe you're pushing a bomb site, or you're behind enemy lines, or are you planting or defusing the spike? Each situation that you're in is going to require you to play it out differently, meaning that there isn't one right answer. However, let me show you a few clips that will show you what being less predictable is all about. Now in this first clip, I'm stuck in a 1v2 situation when the enemy Sage revives their Phoenix. I already know that the enemy breach is in B main, and since the Sage revived the Phoenix, I know that they are both in mid. So I decide to play it a little bit more aggressive and B heaven to try and get a quick frag onto the breach that is pushing bomb site. Oh, and the enemies have no idea where I am. After killing the breach and giving away my location, I try and reposition myself to get an advantage. Once I hear the spike being planted, I know that it's now or never. Because if they manage to plant the bomb, then I'm putting myself in an unfavorable 1 versus 2 situation. And once I get a kill on the Sage, I know not to immediately re-peek because that's most likely where the enemy Phoenix is pre-aiming. But instead I force his hand to have to go to the bomb and try and plant it or to try and push me. But he runs out of time and we end up winning the round. In this next clip, I'm stuck in a 1 versus 3 situation. I have the spike and I know that the entire enemy team is by B short. I start off by getting a frag on the enemy jet and I start to contemplate on whether or not I should go for the bomb plant or I should take the teleporter and catch them off guard on B short. Now I go for the more risky and unexpected play, which was in this case a right call, because otherwise I would have been stuck in a 1 versus 3 situation once the enemy Sage had revived their Raze. Besides me getting a bit lucky with all of them missing their shots, what I want you guys to focus on is on the very last kill. And instead of doing the most predictable thing, which is taking the bomb, going to B side and planting it, I go back, flash him and catch him off guard. For this next tip, you need to think about having a goal for every round. And to get the jokes out of the way, aiming for the head and left clicking is not really what I mean, but much rather what are you as an individual contributor gonna do to help your team win that round. A good example of this is, let's say your team is planning to push a bomb site on split. What you might want to do that round is lurk and try and catch the enemies on the rotate. And it's important to note that if that is your goal for that round, you cannot simply just sit outside B bomb site hoping for the enemy to rotate. What you need to do is wait for your team to actually have taken the bomb site and then start to crawl up mid and try and catch them off guard. This was just a quick example and there are many out there, but keep in mind that the character that you pick is going to have a big impact on the role you play. And another quick example for this is, let's say you select Sage. Playing Lurk or an entry fragger might not be the best option, because your team heavily relies on your healing abilities to make sure that they make it through that round. So think about that next time. What is the character that you picked and what is your goal going to be every round? For this next tip, you're going to need to think about on whether or not you're going to play aggressive or take it slow. and this goes for both offense as well as defense. Keep in mind that there is 1 minute and 40 seconds to every round. That does not mean that you need to rush a bomb site within the first 10 seconds and die instantly. Make sure that you guys use the 30 seconds before every round to your advantage. Communicate to your team if you're going to push up a bomb site or if you're going to play it slow and play for picks. Especially if you know that the enemy team is very aggressive and they tend to push up certain parts of the map. And just to better explain what I'm talking about, I'm going to show you this quick clip. We lost the first 4 rounds because the enemy team was playing very aggressive. After that, we adjusted our tactics and decided to play for picks and wait for them to push. And basically 20 seconds into the round, the enemy team gets impatient and starts to push up mid and double doors. And there you go. I racked up 4 easy kills within 20 seconds just because I played time and was waiting for picks. Be where your team needs you the most. Now, it doesn't sound too complicated, and it really isn't that complicated. Let's say that the enemy team has lost control over the spike on B bomb site on split. Then make sure that wherever you are on the map, you try and rotate and position yourself where you can catch an enemy off guard when they're trying to recover that spike. Sitting at the back of A bomb site and trying to engage in a 1 versus 1 is no help to your team at all. But the much smarter move here is to rotate towards CT and try and hold that area. Another good example of this is on the map Haven, and I will show you guys a quick clip where I can best explain this. After taking control over A bomb site, we're stuck in a 2 versus 2 situation, and the enemy team knows exactly where we are. Since my teammate is holding down A bomb site with a sniper, I decide to rotate and see if I can gather some information. Because of this, I managed to pull off a 1 versus 1 and managed to win the round. And if I had waited for the enemy team to make their first move, then we would have been stuck in a 2 versus 2 situation with the bomb planted, and the odds would have been against us. So just try and think about this next time. Where was the bomb last spotted? How much information does the enemy team have on your location? And look for gaps on the map where you can rotate to in order to help your teammate cover some angles. Waiting around choke points can be one of the reasons why you're losing certain rounds. Let's say you have a Brimstone in your team and he smokes off a ramp, Heaven, and CT, and you decide to push up into A bomb site on split. And what then usually happens is someone takes the first step and tries to lead the way onto the bomb site. But instead of getting an entry frag, he ends up dying. And what then usually happens is your team kind of gets scared, and instead of going for that trade kill, they decide to hold off and wait back. By this time, the smokes have already disappeared and the enemy team has rotated and then probably picks off each of your teammates one by one. If the entry fragger in your team dies, then you should know the enemy's location. So make sure that you use that to your advantage and try and push them together as a team to go for that trade kill. If you hold off and wait in that choke point, that enemy player is most probably going to change up his positioning and will be able to get the advantage on you next time round. A very common mistake that I see people doing is when they don't really think about where they're planting the bomb and where they're going to position themselves right after that. If you know that the enemy team is quite close, then you should always go for a safe plant, no matter what. Because if you end up dying and losing the spike out in the middle of the open, then the enemy team can just hold that angle and it'll be very difficult for your team to recover the spike. However, if you know that the area is clear and you have teammates to cover you, then make sure to try and plant the bomb out in the open, as when the defending team needs to come and defuse the bomb, it's much more challenging for them to do so, giving your team a lot more angles and opportunities to take out the person defusing the bomb. Another thing which is very important is where do you position yourself right after planting the bomb? And I would say that very much depends on the situation that you're in. So let's say that you're outnumbered and you get the bomb down. If you stay on site, you're most probably going to die, as the enemy team is going to pin you down into a corner. So it's almost always better to try and outsmart the enemy team by moving and rotating to a different position where they will least expect you. Something to note is that people have been playing this game long enough now to kind of anticipate where you're going to be depending on where the bomb is planted. A quick example of this is on the map Bind. Planting the bomb on a bomb site on the default spot and then going to hide in bathrooms is probably not the best idea anymore. So try and think about where you're going to be positioning yourself depending on where you plant the bomb, and always try to do something that is least expected by the enemy team. This next tip is making sure that you keep your gun out if you think an enemy is close, because I'm sure we can all relate to a moment where we were about to use one of our abilities, but ended up dying as an enemy player decided to take a peek. Here's a quick example of exactly just that. And I'll let the clip play out as my buddy TJ manages to pull off a sick collateral with a sniper, resulting in us winning the round.
Get out of my way!
Flash out! Two at least.
Flashing.
One is one.
Oh,
Two side.
Three side.
I'm low.
Last player standing.
What was
It's
that?
planted on the right side. Oh, he's defusing.
One enemy remaining.
Oh! Oh shit! And in this particular example, I was doing the correct thing as I was trying to catch the enemies off guard. But looking back on this clip now, I should have been ready to peek him with my gun out, rather than having my flash out and peeking the corner too early. So don't always rely on your abilities to do most of the work for you, and make sure that you don't get caught completely off guard. Something which I have found to be very useful is playing their weakest player. Everyone has a bad game every now and then, so why not try and spot someone on the enemy team that is not doing as well and try using that to your advantage. If you notice that a player in the enemy team is struggling to hold a certain part of the map, it might also be quite advantageous for you and your team to try and exploit that and to try and push that part of the map. I noticed that this tactic works really well if the enemy team is not communicating and helping each other out. So try it out next time, you'll be surprised on how often it works.